about. This is the shortened version. The Director of Clinical Informatics, Facility Integration, and Leadership Development. Tried to come up with an acronym, didn't roll off the tongue. Currently also serves on the Nashville Metropolitan School Board for public schools, and she's done that since 2008, which I just find just absolutely inspirational. Currently lives in Nashville with her family. She's going to share with us some similar types of stories about her learning, her application of Arbinger principles in her life and the way that it's impacted her and the people around her. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Sharon Gentry.
So Mike Renner back there is saying, and don't try to compete with her humor. Like, my graphics are nowhere near as even remotely entertaining. So thank you for the introduction. I want to talk about exactly that. My experiences in three facets of my life. HCA, which is where I've worked for 21 years now, with the school board, and then we'll try to get through a personal story. When I first got introduced to Arbinger, it was a result of hiring our new director of schools. And we got him from Prince George's County, so thank you guys over there in the corner. And I was chair of the school board at the time. And he comes in, and we get to talk. It's about, I think, June of 2016. And he says, you know, I've been reviewing the game tape. Those are videos of our school board meetings. And I think that you guys, we, could benefit from some training that's delivered by the Arbinger Institute. It's called Outward Mindset. So I will tell you at that point, I was drained, exhausted, worn out, felt a little beat down. His hiring was actually the second attempt at getting a director of schools for our district. So we, at that point in time, had been labeled a dysfunctional board. Now, so that we can level set here, we're going to have our working definition of dysfunctional. Our working definition of dysfunctional is going to be deviating from norms of social behavior in a way regarded as bad. I Googled that this morning, and it's about accurate. So Mike Merchant, and I have to do a disclaimer here, the rest of this story does not end well, and it's not Mike Merchant's fault at all. He did a wonderful job. We did a 2-day training there in Nashville. We got all caught up, and we were very excited about the power of the material. There were people who we thought were dry as deserts that burst into tears, and 5 of us decided we needed to get certified in this work. We need to help our director of schools get this through the central office team, down through the principals, to the classroom, to the students even if possible. So we come here to Salt Lake City, 5 of us get certified, and we're still at that point excited. So fast forward to this week, this very week. We have a school board meeting tonight that I will not be able to attend. And our new director of schools is asking us to budget what we claim to value. Outward Mindset says there should be an intelligent and respectful way to facilitate that dialogue. We should be able to have a conversation. We should be able to articulate what our desired results are. We should have our mindset such that the behaviors, whether they're meetings, whether they're budgets, whether they're committee meetings, gets us to those desired results. If you were to watch that meeting, you would probably wonder if we could spell DIOM. We have devolved that badly. So my takeaways from that experience were twofold. Number one, I reflected on the fact that when we were trained in Outward Mindset, we were trained on a high. Things were going really, really well. We'd hired an amazing director of schools, a young African-American male, the first African-American that had ever led the school district, in a district that is 60% African-American, in a city that historically has deep roots in the civil rights movement, in a city this year is celebrating 60 years of the desegregation of public schools. Everything is working in our favor, and yet we cannot have a civil conversation around the budget. The second thing I realized is that in spite of the best efforts of several people, there really wasn't intentional care and feeding of the outward mindset principles. And so this is why this entire day yesterday totally changed this presentation. Because when I looked at that assess and then train and then implement and then reassess and sustain, we sort of hit the wall at train. Care and feeding. And remember, training in the good times is good, but not sustaining doesn't prepare you for the bad times. But never just assume that the outward mindset work is for the bad times and only necessary when it's time to solve a problem. Working our way to HCA. In 2015, which is a year before the Arbinger work, my reporting structure changed. And if the movie Boss Baby had been out at that time, that's what I would have called my boss. He was about almost half my age. Don't try to do the math, just stop. Don't do that. And I had been in the company twice as long as he had. So every time I went into a one-on-one, I assumed there had to be a hidden camera somewhere, because this had to be a joke. I mean, twice as long, twice as old as he was. I had delivered on amazing enterprise-level projects for this huge organization. He had not done any of those things. Add to that, I'm chair of the school board of Nashville. I educate 86,000 students. I am responsible for a $793 million budget. Why are we even having a conversation? So I found myself channeling my inner Frank Underwood, you know that thing he does when he looks into the camera? And begins to elucidate the myriad of reasons why the person he's talking to is really a total and utter waste of his time, but we do what we must do. And I would return, half-heartedly, disinterested, not connecting at all with what my boss was talking about. So then, going back to October of 2016, Arbinger, outward mindset work, something starts to needle at me and says, hey, you and Boss Baby, it actually could be you. Like, no, it's Boss Baby, trust me. But the more I read through the materials, the more I studied the book, the more I started handing out copies of Leadership and Self-Deception, the more I had to accept it's actually me. So in December of 2016, I walked into my end-of-the-year performance review, and I sat down, and he took a deep breath, and I said, may I go first? He said, sure. And I passed him a copy of the 3A Plus Performance Framework that I completed for myself. And reading that was a reflection of the worst performance evaluation that I had had in my then 19-year career. But it also opened up the best conversation I'd ever had with that young man. It totally changed our relationship. I no longer report to him. We're actually, we were peers, it's complicated, but I actually provide support for his team and several of the others in my peer group. The thing that was interesting about the conversation is where I was so bent up on being bitter and upset about where I found myself structurally and had totally abdicated all responsibility and accountability, he actually took that time to show where he could have been more supportive and provided more clarity in what his expectations were of me. We were able to have, again, a productive conversation. He actually changed the evaluation significantly, and I'm still gainfully employed. To the plus. But that conversation, that experience, that transition that I never thought would happen, because everything that you can think about, exaggerating values sprinkled with a whole lot of hyperbole, I was in it. I was all about it. Gathering allies, I talked about how horrible every conversation with him was, how depressed I was at the idea of even having to have the conversation to anyone who would listen. I created that. And this work forced me to own that. But it also made me doubly committed to the potential of outward mindset work. So I take back to my vice president who had gotten a copy of Leadership and Self-Deception, whose entire personage says, I don't read. What are the cliff notes? Tell me something about it that's important. And yet he walked around with that book for 2 weeks straight. And I watched the bookmark move further and further to the back of the book. And he calls me into his office and he said, I think this is it. I think this is what we need to get this team to the next level. So I'm excited, right? So I'm like Kim White now. I get to do Arbinger. I get my Arbinger black t-shirt. I wear it under my clothes all the time. And it simply says, I do Arbinger. And so what I got to do was to train 130 plus people in the outward mindset work. I got to actually sit in on other behaviors, right? So the behaviors that we learn and use in our day-to-day job don't go away because we use outward mindset, right? We still have project plans or pieces of paper with cut-out index cards if you work at Menlo. We still have true colors. We still have crucial conversations. We still have all these other trainings that are designed to help us achieve these desired results. But I had the responsibility to participate in those trainings as well, and to, at the end of each, get to show how having an outward mindset was still foundational to any of those things being effective. Then, last week, it's been a rough 2 weeks, guys. Last week, we had a RIF, a reduction in force at HCA. I was at the doctor's office I knew it was coming. I was at the doctor's office when the names started to circulate and my phone's buzzing. I'm getting text messages, wondering if my name is going to be one of the beeps, but didn't happen. Still gainfully employed. And I come back and my VP asks me to touch base with my peers, each of those who had to let someone go. I recognized after 4 conversations about 5 people that we had missed the boat at HCA as well. Because outward mindset had been delivered to over 100 people, everyone in that department, but we had not done the work to make it a part of our culture. We had gone through all the sustainment videos. How many people in here know what Chip Hoots' blood type is? Everybody knows that, right? So we'd gone through all the sustainment videos. And again, I'd worked with directors to do goal setting and role clarity, all using outward mindset. But it was never the expectation. It was just a tool in an arsenal that was pulled out when we thought it might be helpful. So that was my second lesson, is that it has to become a part of the culture. And leadership, and I think Jim alluded to this yesterday, that we may not all be in positions in our organizations to make that happen, but we have to work with our leadership to show the importance of making the outward mindset work a part of the culture. Because I recognize as a result of all those conversations, simply using the 3A+ performance framework would have pointed out the issues with each person that was released. The first one was the project director. AVP says, super smart, very talented. We got a 3. Works harder than anybody I know. Definitely a plus. But nobody likes her. I said, what? She said, nobody likes her. I said, nobody. She said, nobody. So did you ever tell her nobody likes her? I can't just tell her nobody likes her. It's your job to tell her that nobody likes her. So definitely a C in the impact space. Another young man, very young man, probably the first real job he's had in his life. 2 in capability, definitely an A in impact, a 2 in effort. But did you tell him he wasn't putting in the effort? Well, he was getting it done, but was he putting in the effort? I mean, it could have been better. Did you have the conversation? No. So even all the training we'd done in crucial conversations, no one was equipped with the right mindset to understand that they needed to have the crucial conversation. So incorporating it into the culture And I'll use another Menlo, try the experiment. So now we have, as of Friday, the 3A Plus Performance Framework is our evaluation tool for every team. The third space is a personal one. So on April the 10th of 2017, I came to the conclusion that there was something not quite right about my body. And made a mental note, because I'm quasi-productive, probably not that productive. I've only got 2 kids. I'm a little productive. That I need to go figure out what was going on. So I made a note. That day was also our new director's first State of the Schools address. So I'm sitting there on the front row, and my phone is in my lap, and it buzzes. And I look down, and the text says, "Your father has just had another massive stroke." So I go into project manager mode, and I reply back, "I need to go to the doctor. He's a hospital. Send him to an HCA facility. I'm from New Orleans. He's still there. I'll see you tomorrow." Make arrangements. I get on a plane. I get to New Orleans. I get to Tulane Hospital. I check in on my dad, talk to all the doctors. I go down to the CEO's office, who happens to be a medical doctor, and says, "I need you to order some tests for me." He says, "Sure." I go into the CNO's office once the tests are ordered and says, "I'm going to be having these exams done on tomorrow at this time." She goes, "Don't worry about it. I'll go sit with your dad." I call my best friend of 40 plus years. She comes over. We go together to get the exams. And by Friday of that week, I have cancer. Probably had it before then, but now I have cancer. I've got cancer? And you have that moment of things slow down for a bit. But I had a thought that you will not believe. LaVonna Givens. Do you remember LaVonna Givens? I finally deserve to not have to be outward, to not think about others' outside triangles. I finally deserve to not even worry about it, to not have to think about it. I deserve to just chill out. I can now crawl into my I deserve box because I got a cancer card. I have lots of cards now as a result of that, but I got a cancer card. Then something hit me. And it was in this spirit, I know from yesterday, that what I really needed to do was to reassess my outside triangle, because it had completely changed. The things that I would need from my family, the things that I would need from my direct reports, the things that I would need from my peers and my boss had changed. And that if I was truly going to be the outward mindset chick at work and continue to wear my I Do Arbinger t-shirt, I was required to share my new outside triangle. But the most amazing thing that actually happened is once I shared my new outside triangle with my family, my then 8-year-old daughter, in her own way, shared her new outside triangle with me. Now, yesterday I talked to McKay about our kids, and I was telling him that my now 9-year-old is very emotional. She's a touchy-feely kind of kid. She also has a high sense of right and wrong, and she's an annoying rule follower. But what she needed to be able to do was to take care of me. She began to sleep in my bed. She emptied drains and measured the output. She took pictures of scars. She changed bandages. My 8-year-old had a new outside triangle. So I did not have to go inward. I did not have to go into my box. I just needed to take the responsibility of reassessing my outside triangle and being true to the SAM model of articulating what that new outside triangle was to those people that I would be impacting. So I would tell you that this outward mindset journey for me has been extremely interesting. It has opened up a lot of opportunities, but it has raised a lot of accountability and responsibility personally, and has definitely created more humility than I ever thought I was capable of possessing. So I would say to each of you here that it's okay that you do Arbinger and that you be that Arbinger person in your places of work. But I'll remind you of a saying that says, when you know better, you do better. And we know Arbinger. So I encourage you to continue to do better and help others do better as well. Thank you.